Coming up on today's Locked On Senators, we're recording right after the first round of the NHL Draft, where there were surprise picks, embarrassing moments, and everything in between except for any trades.
And the Ottawa Senators were not a part of the first round in the 2023 draft, but will they make a move before their next intended pick at 108?
We'll let you know as well who the top available players are left in this NHL Draft. This is the Locked On Senators podcast. It's your team every day.
Your Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
I'm Jake Sanderson, and you're listening to Locked On Senators podcast.
I'm Tim Stützle, and you're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast.
Welcome inside episode 830 of the Locked On Senators podcast. I'm Ross Levitan on the outskirts of enemy territory in Winnipeg, Manitoba, alongside Brandon Piller up in the Blue Mountains. Today's episode is on Wednesday, June 28th, but for a rare occasion, we are recording late in the evening. That's because we had the first round of the NHL Draft where Pierre Dorion was quiet, but Pilsy, on this show, we are ready to announce winners, losers, and nothing in between.
And Ross, we're also happy to announce that this episode is brought to you by the FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of the Locked On Podcast Network. Make every moment more with FanDuel. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started.
So who's the biggest loser from tonight?
I don't know if we're going to do losers, winners, or anything like that, but I think we can definitely hit on some of our favorite picks. And as we said earlier, some picks that we would have gone with other players or not the player we expected, or we had other players ranked higher in our rankings.
But not a whole lot, because of the 32 picks in the first round, our Locked On Senators draft rankings got 29 out of 32. And in our mock draft that's 5 hours long, that still lives on YouTube, we hit 6 on the dot.
Yeah,
that's pretty impressive.
And Ross, the only time where a team decided to pick outside of our rankings, well, this brought joy to you and I. It was the Toronto Maple Leafs. They picked a player we did not cover in 60 rankings? So
61 with Matteo Mann.
So congrats to them. Happy for the Leafs fans.
Chicago Blackhawks made out like bandits tonight. They didn't only get Connor Bedard, but they got one of your favorite players in the draft in Oliver Moore all the way at 19.
Yeah, I was thinking Oliver Moore would get selected earlier, but if you're the Chicago Blackhawks, and I know I had a bunch of people, I tweeted out the Blackhawks won the draft, kind of joking and serious. Like, obviously you win the draft when you get generational talent first overall, but when they're walking away with Connor Bedard and then Oliver Moore, you got the best shot and the best skater in the draft. That's incredible.
We're going to get to more draft talk, but Pilsy, Locked On Senators. A lot of people throughout the day talking about the moves that could happen, and Alex DeBrincat at the forefront. It was from the moment Pierre Dorion scheduled a press conference, or at least an interview on TSN 1200 at 7 o'clock when the draft starts, that time. I was like, I don't think he's going to be doing anything today.
Yeah, that kind of made it clear. And Pierre Dorion even said it in his media availability the day before that the Senators weren't really targeting acquiring a first-round pick in this draft. And so that doesn't really come as a surprise here. Plus, you don't want to move Alex DeBrincat just for the sake of doing it quickly and getting a pick in this draft. So I think it was ultimately the right decision here. But we'll see, Ross, if they end up doing something that allows them to pick earlier than 108th in tomorrow's day of the draft.
If you had to give a handicapping of it, what would be the favorite? What do you think the most likely scenario is for the Senators?
I think they might move a prospect and acquire a third-round pick.
Yeah, maybe like an aging prospect. Maybe a Lassie Thompson comes to mind for me right now.
Yeah, that's kind of the direction I was going as well. I just think that the scouting staff is going to have a guy or two that they're really high on, and in the third or maybe even second round, they find some value and maybe they make a move there. But Ross, I honestly thought there was going to be at least 3 trades in the first round of the NHL draft, and there was 0, none of them, no trades, which was very disappointing, honestly.
Looking for trades, like, honestly, one of the best parts is Gary Bettman. We have a trade to announce.
Or no, Ross. Gary Bettman going up to the stand, getting booed, and then either he goes, I think you're going to want to hear this one, or, okay, yep, bring it on.
He gave one of those things. Hey, by the way, how have we gotten this far into the show? We would like to formally take a moment as Locked On Senators to congratulate David Poile on his years of service to the National Hockey League.
David Poile has been an immense mentor for both myself and Ross.
He hasn't, actually. He's rejected his only appearance on Locked On Senators. Do you remember me reaching out to the Nashville Predators?
No.
I thought I was doing Brian Murray a solid. I was trying to get the propaganda going. And I was like, Brian Murray gave David Poile his first job in the NHL, Washington Capitals, mid-'80s. And I was like, we should get David Poile on because he's definitely going to bang the table that we need Brian Murray in the Hall of Fame. You know what the Nashville Predators wrote back? David Poile is on the board of people who vote for the Hall of Fame and couldn't come on the show. So he needs to be banging on the table more for Brian Murray.
Absolutely. But where I'll bring it back to thanking David Poile, thank you for trading with the Ottawa Senators, allowing them to select Erik Karlsson. That was cool. That was great. So
that was really cool. So congratulations.
And before we move on, Ross, also like to thank or congratulate the Vegas Golden Knights on winning the Stanley Cup.
You know what sucks? I was kind of hoping Kelly McCrimmon would say that with pick 32. We'd like to congratulate ourselves.
Credit to us.
Oh man. By the way, Bill Guerin just seems like an all-time guy.
Yeah, I mean that's a hockey dude right there.
Yeah, man, maybe the pick where we were most curious, Billsy.
And Ross, we'll try to tie it back to Sens here, but also maybe teams learn a lesson. Don't have players make your picks for you. That did not turn out very well either time. Or have the players practice saying the name and make sure you know who you're selecting when you go up there. I mean, Carey Price.
And he tried to be a hero too with the French at the start. And it's like, okay, let's get one language right the whole way through the sentence before we just stumble through two.
Yeah, at first, Ross, I thought he was joking, like he was trying to create suspense, and then you could tell after he did the look back and was like, "Oh no, I'm out on an island here on my own, and I don't know the kid's name." That's when it's like he literally doesn't know who to say.
As a goalie, though, you're used to being out on an island, only guy out there.
That's true, but Ross, I can say one other player. I'm sure this has happened many times, but one other time this sticks out for me. Claude Giroux was drafted by the Flyers, and they went up, and they I forget who it was. It might have been Bob Clark went up, and he was like, and the Philadelphia Flyers are proud to select. And then he's like, who are we picking again? And then it's like Claude Giroux. So having your name forgotten by the person whose only job is to say your name does not, it's not a detriment on the career you can have. Let's just say that.
No, but it was funny that it was 5th overall. Like that was a pick in the 20s. Like there's lots going on. It's late in the night. This was 5th overall.
Yeah.
Imagine being a Habs fan. Like, because he didn't even say the team. Like, you know how when they were like U.S. national team in 2021, we're like, oh, Chaz Lucius?
Yeah.
Like they didn't even have that. All they got was David.
But Ross, I'm looking at our rankings and there's no other Davids. So at least, yeah, you had a good idea of who was being selected. But yeah.
Wild moment there. And how about, speaking of players, former players making a pick, Patrick Marleau going up for the 4th overall pick and said, with the 1st overall selection.
Yeah, and then Pecorine did a similar thing. He got the first name right, but forgot the second one. So
I thought they were doing like a little handoff because he was up there with Roman Josi. I thought it was going to be like first name, last name.
Yeah. So lessons were learned in this draft.
There were some fun moments though, and we just brought up 3 of them there. But there was also a lot of suspense at the top of the board, Pilsy, because at 2nd overall, we had our first surprise, I say with quotations, but Leo Carlsson throwing a bit of a wrench in the whole draft. But I know you were laughing at the Sportsnet guys calling Dmitry Simashev an absolute monumental reach. That's your guy.
Yeah.
He went 6th to Arizona, by the way.
Look, there was a lot of things that the Sportsnet guys said that kind of scratched my head. But Simashev, like this guy is so good. And that was the pick where Arizona made the pick and I got up and clapped. I was like, yes, that's a good pick right there. I love that pick. And then they're like, oh, wow, this is a terrible pick. What a reach. This is not who we thought we'd take here. But whatever, to each their own.
Yeah, to each their own. So I was laughing. You said, because usually you say like, that made me scratch my head. You're like, they had a few picks that scratched my head.
Yeah, that pick scratched my head. Yeah.
I love it. Hey, we're going to talk about some head scratchers that weren't taken tonight. We're going to get the best player available, but we also have to dive in a little more to the Sens, Pillsy, because I have a few ideas for tomorrow I want to throw off of you. We're going to talk about that next. You're listening to Locked On Senators.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Guys, in our pre-draft show, FanDuel had odds that you could pick about the NHL Draft. Was Leo Carlson going to go 2nd overall? Matvei Michkov over under 5.5 overall. There's so many fun things you can do at FanDuel, and they're always finding ways to help you get into the action. So if you're a new customer, you can get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and easy to use. You guys know it's my favorite sportsbook app out there.
Pillsy,
yeah.
We just talk about FanDuel for a second. Look what I told the people yesterday.
Yeah, there you go. Ross called it. And Habs fans, they certainly have opinions about who they took. David at 5th overall. And you can get an even better chance at a bigger payout with same game parlays if you're still into the baseball season. It's heating up. So don't miss your chance on the no sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/locked on. Once again, that's FanDuel.com/locked on to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook betting partner of the NBA.
Today's episode is also brought to you by Owl & Co. Grooming. Owl & Co. Grooming was a company started by Chris Sinclair. We want to thank Owl & Co. Grooming for spending time with us on this show. Chris Sinclair is a true citizen, and we want everyone to go follow him as well at Chris on Send. So thank you, Chris, and thank you, Owl & Co. Grooming, for being a part of this show. Thank you to Chris Sinclair, Owl & Co. Grooming. I still use it right now, and hopefully we see Chris back sooner rather than later. So go check out Chris at Chris on Sends. That's Chris on Sends. Great entrepreneur, local guy, local dude. We appreciate everything that he's done with us here at Locked On Senators. All right, Pillsy. I'm feeling a little like Nostradamus right now. I really am. We got 29 out of 32 picks right in the first round. That's one better than Bob McKenzie.
Yeah, that was fun, Ross, when we can follow a draft and basically all of the players but one we had good info on and were well aware of. So that makes it a lot more fun when you're kind of in on all the players.
Yeah, it really does. And that's what kind of saved tonight. Because let's be honest, no trades. We wanted to see trades. We want to see player movement. Yeah. We've got a bit of it over the last couple of days, no doubt. But we like the suspense of the draft. We didn't even really have that many moments where it's like these two GMs are talking. These two GMs walked off the floor together. This is happening. That is happening. It seemed like pretty tame, I think, overall.
Yeah, and Ross, it really seems like the moves that have been happening lately have all been salary cap affected. So maybe it's just a matter of, hey, our salary cap guy isn't here, or his calculator doesn't work fast enough to figure out the math in between picks, and you just couldn't get deals done. Like a couple of the GMs said there were talks and they had things that interest them, but ultimately decided to just stick with the picks. So that's interesting for sure. I thought we were going to see at least one trade. Like at the very least, Ross, I thought we were going to see a team trade up 2 or 3 picks and send over a second and a third rounder the other way because their guy was still there. So, It was close. I forget who reported this. I saw on Twitter, though, that Danny Briere said he tried really hard to move up to select Matvei Michkov, but no one would take any of his offers, and then he just fell to him anyway. So you gotta love when that works out for you.
Oh, I love the Philadelphia Flyers draft. They get Matvei Michkov at 7, and then Oliver Bonk at 22. Like, come on, that's the dream draft.
Yeah, honestly, Ross, it's like for a baseball reference, they went up to the plate, first pitch, swung out of their socks as hard as they could swing, and then second pitch, laid down a bunt and made it to first. Like, they had a high risk, high reward pick, and then with Bonk, they picked a player that is very safe, very projectable, and will likely turn into an NHL player for them. So that's a nice draft for Danny Briere.
Who was your favorite draft pick where you're like, oh, hell yeah, love that for them there?
Well, I already mentioned Simashev, and I think that just makes so much sense for Arizona. That's why I thought they were going to go with Michkov. Like, when they started saying the team name and things like that, I was just like, "Ooh, a Russian? Okay, they're going with Michkov here." But they went with Simashev. But this is a team that is trying to be as bad as possible for the next couple of years. So why not have a guy play over in the KHL, and then by the time you're in Salt Lake City, boom, you drop Simashev in, and that's injected into the fan base. So I think that was a nice pick by them. But to switch it up, and I don't want to take your picks here, Ross. How about I'll snap it back to you so I don't take one of yours?
Oh, well, you already know my number one was...
So I've got 2 of them, and I think both of them could be your answer.
The Winnipeg Jets at 18. And this is going to sound maybe homerish, but they've been such a strong drafting team over the last number of years. We both loved what they did last year with Rutger McGroarty and Brad Lambert. But to get Colby Barlow, who for us was the 13th ranked player on the board, as high as 6 at hockeyprospect.com, a guy we were super high on, to go 18, that's a huge... And Chaz Lucius is in the system too here. Like, they're building something special up front in the prospect pool. So I love that pick for Colby Barlow to Winnipeg at 18, even though it did mean they left Sandin Pellikka on the board for Chicago. That was just, they were in a good spot. Once there were a couple, I don't know if I want to call them safer picks, but once, like, Jaeger went off the board to Pittsburgh, and then we saw Samuel Honzik to Calgary, which I love that pick, by the way. I think we mentioned Calgary when we were talking about Honzik as a potential destination. So after those 2 went, I knew there'd be some high upside guys. So yeah, I love that pick of Barlow at 18.
Yeah, so do I. I love it. That was one of the ones I was thinking of. But where I thought you were going to go, again, connection to your Winnipeg.
Oh,
Zach Benson at 12. I mean,
13.
13. Sorry. Yes, 13. For some reason, I forgot what the 12th pick was. I can't figure out why.
Oh, yeah. No.
Just very underwhelming.
I'm trying to chick in and remember where we put it. But.
Yeah. It scratches my head where that goes. But I just think that getting Zach Benson there, that's such value. And the Buffalo Sabres, like, I tweeted out the Winnipeg Jets have one of my favorite prospect pipelines. The Sabres are right there too, like Jack Quinn, JJ Peterka. Like, there's just so many good players that they have. And as a division rival, that's scary for me.
Yeah. All right. Before we get to the final segment, let's discuss the Ottawa Senators a little bit further. I'm going to power rank my top 3 things that I think are going to happen tomorrow. I already mentioned Lassie Thompson, maybe on the way out, maybe for a third round pick, second round pick. Not ideal. You can also keep him too. I know he does need waivers, but he probably clears waivers, and then you have 1 more year, I think, to develop him. Another move, Alex Formenton. I think we see Alex Formenton's rights traded. If anyone will take them, Bruce has been writing about it, which either means that the team's kind of wanting that narrative out there, or he is hearing about Alex Formenton. So I'm not going to hold my breath on that, but I do think that could be a move. And I'm also going to keep my eye out on Eric Brandstrom. I don't know why. I'm just getting this vibe. You might see an Eric Brandstrom trade. I think that's the guy who teams are going to be calling about. And if maybe somebody offers an early second round pick, the Senators think about doing that.
So I'll hit on your 2 and 3 since we already mentioned 1. 2, Formenton. I don't see it happening. I just don't think any teams are going to give up any assets until there's full clarity on the Hockey Canada situation. I don't think I've kind of put him out of the equation altogether coming back to the NHL. And then Eric Brandstrom, I'm going to push back on that.
I don't want him traded.
Yeah, I don't see that happening. I think just there's so much value there for him as a Senator that I don't think it's going to happen. So we'll see. We'll see. But it wouldn't surprise me, Ross, if they end up just starting the day at 108.
Well, okay, so you're going to go the other way. I was going to say, give me a name. Give me a guy who you think could be on the way out. But you think he's going to stand pat and just let the draft come and go.
Yeah, I think this might be a case, Ross, where we've got the rose-colored glasses on at Sens fans being like, oh, we have some really good prospects that we can trade for picks. Meanwhile, the reason we're putting these guys' names out there is because we're like, we don't need them. Let's get some picks back instead. So I don't see it happening. Either one of them, unfortunately.
Well, we're going to be dialed into the second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and the 7th round, where the Senators have 3 picks in the 7th round. That usually goes by a lot quicker. We're going to do tomorrow's episode right after the Senators' final selection. So we're going to bring you an official reaction podcast where we'll actually be able to profile your newest members of the Senators organization. Tonight, it's all about the rumors, which there really weren't a whole lot of with the Senators. The only thing that came out during it was Bruce Garriock saying the Sens are not going to give away Alex DeBrincat for pennies on the dollar. And I think that kind of needs to tell you the offers have not been strong for Alex DeBrincat right now. So that's something that we'll keep an eye on tomorrow. We will also discuss who the best players available are on our board and beyond. That's coming up next. You're listening to Locked On Senators. All right, Pilsy. I know we can discuss a few more things about the draft, but I want to talk about the most important storyline. I need your take on this.
Okay.
In or out with Bill Armstrong dressing up the entire Arizona Coyotes brass in matching suits?
Okay, I got 2 answers to this.
I gave you 2 options.
In on the idea, out on the execution.
Okay.
I love the idea, but if you're going to do that, wear suits that don't suck.
I think I know why you're in on it, though.
Why?
We're a team.
Because we're a team. We're all one.
We're a team.
We're all a team.
Yeah, I think it's a fun idea, but those suits were objectively just bad.
They had to be one of the Coyotes' colors. Not the Coyotes necessarily have great colors.
Yeah, I mean that's fair. Yeah, that's definitely
Desert
fair.
sand and purple.
Yeah, and then whatever that is, whether that's maroon or burgundy or I was gonna try to combine the 2 words burgundy.
Burgundy. I
No,
do
that's
appreciate that both times that Arizona has taken Ottawa's pick, both the 2nd round pick 2021 for Derek Stepan. And
who'd they end up picking there? Do you remember?
well, I'm getting to it.
Okay, sorry.
So the player they took
Go
with
off,
their
King.
pick and the player they took with this pick were in honor of the way the Sens draft. They took one of Dmitry Simashev's teammates in Russia.
Okay, yeah, the friendship tour. Yep.
And then in 2021, they drafted Shane Doan's son.
True.
So that's got to be a hat tip right there.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Who are the best players left on the board? According to Locked On Senators list that had 29 out of 32, right? Not sure if you heard that yet. Ethan Gauthier, who you're a big fan of, I like him as well, is our top-ranked player at 25. Andrew Crystal is 26, and Gavin Brindley is 28. So 2 undersized scorers, and Gauthier is not undersized, not oversized, just a player. Good defensive forward who can score. And we got our first goalie at 34, Michael Hrabel, and then 33rd overall, Riley Height, there. So do you like anyone enough on the board that if you're the Sens, you'd trade up, try to get something done quick?
No, I don't think so. I mean, like you mentioned, I am a big fan of Ethan Gauthier, but considering the fact that they didn't qualify his cousin, maybe they're not that big on the the Gauthier, so I don't see them jumping up there. I don't know. I like Riley Height as well, but I don't see it happening. I think it's just so difficult to move up in the draft like that. So I don't think it's going to happen.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm just like wet blanketing all your fun Sens ideas, but I don't see it.
No, it's fair. So what do you think the case is about this then? Like, is it that there isn't really anything to move up for? Do you think the prices are too high? Or do you think that there's really something to be said about maybe there won't be that many moves until we really see the full kingdom handed over to Michael Andlauer?
Well, first off, the Ottawa Senators are no longer in the business of acquiring draft capital, right? I think you got to start with that. As Sens fans, Ross, especially me and you that have been covering this team as a podcast since 2017, we've had a lot of years where the draft is our Stanley Cup. But now times have changed and the Ottawa Senators are looking for different assets. So they're not going to go out of their way to try to acquire higher picks.
Yeah, that's fair. So you think it's going to be quiet tomorrow too?
As far as the Sens go, yes. I think we will see some day two trading up and trading down and things like that. But I don't anticipate we're going to see big moves. I thought the big moves were going to happen tonight. And a lot of the big moves have already happened.
Okay. I'm interested to hear that. I do think there's going to be a few big moves made because of the tight turnaround to free agency. I think teams are going to zero in with agents and be like, hey, like, do you think we'll be able to get something done with your client? If not, like, we're going to have to make a trade here. And I think the next 24 hours is going to be pretty active, but good yin and yang, Pilsy, because you're taking the opposite stance here and saying you think it's going to be quiet, at least from the Senators' perspective. So I hope not. I hope that the Sens give us something here to discuss. If it's not a goalie, at least some sort of top 90 pick would be ideal for me. And at least getting a player in at development camp who's, kind of a shiny new toy. I think that's always exciting. And I'm hopeful that the Senators can add, especially to their depth on the right side of the blue line. And I think it'd be nice to get a couple more centers in the mix. Like if they could somehow get up and take a centerman. I think they've graduated a lot of centers in recent years, and they need to restock the cupboard a little bit here on the fly. I agree with you. They're not in the business of getting picks, but I think it would be good to get at least one in the first two rounds of tomorrow. So in the second or third round.
Now, when you talk about a goalie, are you talking about an NHL goalie or drafting a goalie?
No, that I'm talking about via trade, but also drafting Jacob Fowler because he's sick.
Hell yeah. I am of the mind, Ross, that the Sens will not be trading for a goalie. I think they're waiting on the free agent market. Bruce Garriock, I believe, reported that the Sens are very interested in Korpisalo, who will be unrestricted free agent. I just think, look, Pierre Dorion, it's the old, he had a couple hits, actually. I was going to say it's the old 3 strikes, you're out. But traded for Matt Murray, terrible outcome. Traded for Cam Talbot, terrible outcome. But he did trade for Mike Condon, and that was an absolute great hit. So I guess he's sitting at he's on the board here. Mike Condon pretty much makes up for those 2 blunders. No. Does he?
No, probably not.
No, yeah, fair.
Probably not. So I'm excited for the 3 7th round picks. How about you?
The Senators will own the 7th round. Let's just say that.
Heck yeah. Any final thoughts on today's show, Pilsy? It's late. We had a 2-hour live stream. We had Angus Crookshank. We had Igor Sokolov. Unfortunately, we had some technical difficulties connecting with Ian Mendez, but we did have the boys from the Everyday Sens podcast. So we've had plenty of fun conversation today already. The draft profiles, now that you know where teams are, I think now is a great time to go check out those profiles.
Absolutely. No better time. Final thoughts for me, Ross, is...
Well, it's like planting a tree. The best time was actually 5 days ago, but the second best time is right now.
Yeah, that's fair. Final thoughts for me is I've never been to Nashville. It's one of the cities that are high on my list. we got to go to Tootsie's. I mean, that place sounds like an absolute blast. Like, for it to get name dropped multiple times at the NHL Draft, that's got to be a riot. So we got to get that on our list, Ross.
But I feel like, yeah, it would just be another night of us, exploring the top end places in the world. We've already done El Squid Row together.
Yeah, Squid Row. Oh, yeah.
In Los Cabos. So, I mean, like, I feel like it's on par. I feel like Cabo's version of Tootsie's is El Squid Row.
And then we're talking about doing a Vancouver West Coast trip. So, we got to hit up the Roxy.
So, yeah. Your popular spots on tour. I've been to Cowboys, too, in Calgary. That's always talked about. Went there.
There you go.
During Stampede. So, yeah, we'll have to do the tour. And what's the one that the Kachucks always talk about in Florida? Elbow Room in Fort Worth.
Oh, yeah, true.
So, yeah, we got to make the rounds here. But, yeah, Nashville just seems like a great host city. Although, like, come on. It's 100 degrees out. And, like, it wasn't even full in there. Like, come on. In Montreal, it was full. I'm saying this. All-star games in the South, drafts in the North. Like,
yes. Yeah, I like that. I like that.
And I feel like there's a bit more, like, especially in Canada, like, people love the draft. They live for it. So, yeah, that would be my hope going forward here, that we can get the NHL draft in northern cities and the All-Star games. That's cool. Staying right down south. All right, Pilsy, that's all for today. We'll be back again tomorrow afternoon, and then bright and early episode on Friday, because it's a free agency preview before that opens on Saturday. For Brandon Piller, I'm Ross Levitan. This has been the Locked On Senators podcast. It's your team every day.